This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Thank you so much, Reb Zaki, for hosting tonight's Melave Malka. Shus, Chashav Rabbanim, Rav Again of Halberstadt, Shlita. Tonight, Matzai Shabbos, there's an Indian to speak about Eliyahu Hanavi. You know, the Ramah brings that the reason we speak about Eliyahu Matzai Shabbos is because Eliyahu doesn't come Friday. He can't come Shabbos. The first opportunity to come is Matzai Shabbos. So therefore we like to mention Eliyahu Hanavi. The more you mention Eliyahu Hanavi, the Matzai Shabbos, Zachor Latov, the better off you are. Different minhagim are brought how many times to mention Eliyahu? 3 times, 10 times, 30 times. The Arizal says you should mention Eliyahu Hanavi 130 times, Matzai Shabbos. So, we already mentioned him a few times. We'll see if we could get it in a few more. But Eliyahu, of course, is Mevaser the Geula. And he's Mevaser that Mashiach is coming. There's quite an amazing Gemara Masechta Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara talks about the exile of the Sanhedrin. And the Gemara says the Sanhedrin made 10 exiles Keneged the Shechina. And the Gemara records the stops of the Sanhedrin. The Gemara says they went from the Lishkas Hagazis to a store, to Yerushalayim, to Yavne, to Usha, back to Yavne, to Sharafram, to the Beis Sha'arim, to Tzipori, and the final stop, the last stop of the Sanhedrin, which is Keneged the Shechina, is Teveria. Last stop, Teveria. The last stop the Sanhedrin was ever exiled to is Teveria. And the Gemara says an amazing prediction. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Umisham Asidin Ligael. In other words, if you wanted to know, where will Mashiach reveal himself from? You know, in which city? Where will Mashiach? Will it be in Edgware, Hendon, Golders Green, Cedarhurst? I say if it's in America, it's Cedarhurst. Because Cedarhurst is the closest Jewish community to JFK. So you go to JFK, you go Cedarhurst, right onto the plane to Eretz Yisrael. But actually the Gemara says Mashiach will not even reveal itself in Yerushalayim. Mashiach will reveal itself in the city of Teveria. Hafla v'fela. What's Mashiach doing? Revealing itself in the city of Teveria. Bechlal, the Chida, in his commentary to the Zohar, asks that if you look in the Zohar HaKadosh and Shemais, the Zohar HaKadosh says that where will Mashiach reveal itself? In the Galilee, in the north of Eretz Yisrael. So it's a stira. Because the Gemara says Mashiach will reveal itself in Teveria, and the Zohar says it will be in the Galilee. Says the Chida, the Zohar is just giving you general regional information. It will be in the north. But the Gemara is saying, in which city in the north? In Teveria. So it's not a stira, they're both consistent. But again, why in the city of Teveria? There's a sefer, an incredible sefer, one of the early kadmoinim of the Mekubalim. The name of the sefer is Emes Liakov, Rabbi Yaakov Shaltiel Nunyo. And he has a very interesting question. He wants to know why the great Tana Rabbi Meir is buried in the city of Teveria. Why is Rabbi Meir buried in Teveria? Now, that's an interesting question, especially if you like to go to Kavarim. That opens up a whole gold mine. You could start asking, you know, why is the Baal Shem of London buried in London? Why is the Telza Rosh Hashiva buried in London? You could start a lot of new drushas you could come up with, darshaning who's buried where. And there are such svarim. For example, of Moshe Wolfson, and he has a sefer, Tzion Ve'areha. He discusses why Yishai is buried in Chevron and why Rus is buried in Chevron. It opens up new territory. But he wants to know, why is the great Tana Rabbi Meir buried in Teveria? There's a Yushalmi. The Yushalmi tells us that Rabbi Meir passed away in Asya, in Asia. And he sent word to Eretz Yisrael, and he said, hey, Eretz Yisrael, you should know, Mashiach didchayin, your Mashiach is dying in Asia. And the Yushalmi goes on to say that they put Rabbi Meir's body into the sea, and it miraculously ended up in Eretz Yisrael. But Rabbi Meir says something very interesting about himself. Rabbi Meir says that I am Mashiach didchayin. I am Mashiach. That's quite odd. Because while Rabbi Meir could be many things, one thing Rabbi Meir cannot be is, Rabbi Meir cannot be Mashiach. As we know, in order to be Mashiach, you have to come from the Malchus Beis David. You have to come from Shevet Yehuda. And Rav Meir not only didn't come from the Machas Beis David, he didn't come from Shevet Yehuda. Rav Meir's Elta Zeda was Esav HaRasha. As we know that when the Romans came to destroy the Beis HaMikdash, the first general they sent to destroy the Beis HaMikdash was Nero Caesar. And Nero Caesar came headed toward Yerushalayim, and he shot his arrow to the east, it went to Yerushalayim. He shot his arrow to the west, went to Yerushalayim. To the north, to the south, and then he asked the kid to tell me a pasuk. And the kid said that God is going to allow you to destroy Yerushalayim, then he's going to wipe his hands with you, he's going to destroy you. So Nero Caesar got very nervous. So the Gemara says a few words about Nero Caesar. Gemara says, Arak, he fled. Azal, he left. Va'agayer, he converted. V'nafak minei Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir came from him. So we see Rabbi Meir is very chashuv v'yichus. Rabbi Meir is an enikol of Yitzchak Avinu, but not Yaakov Avinu. Rabbi Meir is an enikol of Esav. In fact, I once saw that Barbanel says, Amar Rabbi Meir, why did Oivadya prophesy about the downfall of Edom? Remember that Gemara in Sanhedrin? Why did Oivadya? Because Meneu be Abba Nezel be Narga. From the forest itself comes the handle for the axe. You know that line? Hopefully not. You're not supposed to. Okay. So there's once a singer who used that line. From the forest itself came the handle for the axe. Basically, from Edom itself came the one who prophesied about the downfall of Edom. So Rabbi Barbanel says, why is it Amar Reb Meir that why did Oivadya prophesy about the downfall of Edom? Because this is Reb Meir's personal heritage. He is an Edomite. He's an Edomite, and therefore he knew about this prophecy of Oivadya. So the bottom line is that Reb Meir came from Edom. How could he be the Mashiach? How could Reb Meir be the Mashiach? So I want to talk about my favorite Gemara. Masechta Avodah Zarah, Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph, going on to Yud Ches Amud Beis. Reb Meir's wife was Beruria. Yeah, she's a tough lady. You know, she was once in the yeshiva, and she saw a guy sitting there learning, like most people do, and just like, reading the text in their mind. He wasn't enunciating the words. So she went and she kicked him. She kicked him in the shin. So what are you doing? You're going to forget all your learning. If you learn and you don't say the words, you forget everything. Shenemar, Arucha b'chol u'shemura. If you say the Torah with your whole being, the Marsha says, what do you mean to say with your whole being? The Marsha says that when you say words of Torah, it creates vibrations, and it's like your whole body is learning. But if you're just silent, so then it's just your mind is learning. So Arucha b'chol u'shemura. So Reb Meir's wife had a sister. She was taken to a base Zoinais. So she said to her husband, it's very embarrassing for me that my sister is in a place of ill repute. So Reb Meir said, what do you want from Mila? What am I supposed to do about it? I'm a rabbi, She said, go get her. That probably was not pleasant for Reb Meir. So he went into the Beis Zoinais, and he wanted to check if she's still tahar, if she's still a kosher lady. So he figures he'll give her a test. The Gemara says, amazingly, he made an advance to her. He said, Shimuli, And she said, no, it's not a good time. Later, she pushed him off. And then she said, there are more beautiful ones than I. So Meir figured, okay, she must pull the stunt with everybody. She's tahar, and he's going to save her. So he goes to the warden, and he bribes the warden, and the warden says, yeah, but I'm afraid of the Malchus. So Meir says, okay, here is low battery. 10% battery remaining. Good? Okay, so anyway. So Rameir says, don't worry. You have nothing to be afraid of. Rameir gave over the following few word tefillah, Elokah, Demeir, Aneni. Just say the God of Meir will answer me. So the warden said, how do I know this tefillah works? So Rameir says, watch, there's this dog that used to eat people, and Rameir incited the dog. The dog made an attack on Rameir. Rameir said, Elokah, Demeir, Aneni. The dog was, disappeared. And the warden was convinced that Elokah Demeir Aneni works, and the story goes happily ever after. They put a sign, sort of, not really. They basically put a sign on the gateway of Rome. Anyone who sees Reb Meir, he's a wanted man. So Rabbi Meir had to pull a stunt, which is not for a general audience, basically. And I don't want anybody to get nervous that this rabbi from America said all the details of the story. So basically, go learn the rest of the story yourself. And once with that introduction, I'm sure everybody will. So that's the story. Rabbi Meir saved his sister-in-law with the famous tefillah, Elaka de Meir Anini. So the Marsha famously has the following question. How are we doing? All electric equipment working? Or what? Not yet.
Which daf was it?
Yud Chesam and Aleph going on to Yud Chesam and Beis. Avodah Zarah. Actually, I'm going to tell you one part of the detail. This stunt Rabbi Meir had to play, which is not for a general audience, the other character was actually Eliyahu Hanavi dressed up. So we got him in one more time. As an individual of ill repute. Sounds good. That's a nice way to say it. Okay. How are we doing? Okay, so the Marsha has the following question. We know the Rebbeinu Shalom does not associate his name with any tzaddikim b'chayehem. We know that so long as somebody is alive, the Rebbeinu Shalom will not associate with them. Shenemar Elokei Avraham upachad Yitzchak. God does not make association with the righteous while they're alive, because so long as a person is alive and breathing, they could always go off the straight and the narrow. So how could Rabbi Meir say Elokei Alaka de Meir Aneni? Rabbi Meir is still alive. God is not the God of Meir. Once Avraham passes on, Yitzchak passes on, Yaakov passes on, so we could say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. But how could we say Alaka de Meir Aneni? That's the question of the Marsha. The Marsha gives a famous answer in his second answer. Want some super snacks? Pizza wheels? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So the Marsha says, Rav Meir was not referring to himself when he said Elokah de Meir Anini. Rav Meir was saying, Elokah, the God who illuminated the life of the Jewish people in the times of Chanukah, Yaneni, he should answer me. In other words, he didn't mean himself at all. Elokah, the God who illuminated the life of Klal Yisrael in the time of Chanukah, he should answer us. Very difficult Marsha. That means every time Rabbi Meir offered this tefillah, he was invoking the miracle of Chanukah. Why would Rabbi Meir specifically invoke the miracle of Chanukah? I mean, that's the only miracle God ever performed for the Jewish people. What about Purim? What about Pesach? 10% battery, 8% battery remaining. There are many miracles that the Rebbeinu Shalom performed for Klal Yisrael. Why is Rabbi Meir always invoking the miracle of Chanukah? He could have mentioned Elokah dematzilenu mi paroi, dematzilenu me Haman. Why is Rav Meir always invoking the miracle of Chanukah? Elokah. And furthermore, we don't find any other Tana offering this tefillah. We don't find Rav Gamliel saying Elokah de Meir Aneni, or Rav Tarfon, or Rav Yeshua. What is Rav Meir's specific connection with the Yom Tif of Chanukah? So I want to share with you a very amazing diuk in the Al Hanisim Tefillah. Something that we should all pick up on. And this will really, I think, open up for us a new understanding of the Yom Tif of Chanukah. In the beginning of Al Hanisim, by the way, you want some super snacks?
We have one super snack.
Here. Yes. Hey, I said that. Okay, good? Okay. We'll deal with that.
Okay.
In the beginning of Al Hanisim, we recount the story. By the way, who wrote the Al Hanisim Tefillah? The Rishonim say Al Hanisim was written by none other than Yochanan Kohen Gadol himself. There are 124 words in Al Hanisim. The Gematria Yochanan say the Rishonim. Others, that's what the Kolboy writes. Rekeach says there are 125 words in Al Hanisim. Yochanan's Gematria 124. Mibnei Anvesanusai, he wrote a tefillah with one more word than the Gematria of his name. So this was written by early authorities. And it says, Kisha'amda Malchus Yavan Harasha Al Amcha Yisrael. So Klal Yisrael is referred to Amcha Yisrael. Ula Amcha Yisrael Asisa Tshua Gedoyla Kemazeh. And then at the end of the Alanisim we say, V'achar Kein Ba'u Banecha. All of a sudden, Klal Yisrael get a promotion. In the beginning, the Yevanim stand up against Amcha Yisrael. God is trying to help Amcha Yisrael. But when Klal Yisrael come back into the Heicha, V'achar Kein Ba'u Banecha. Why all of a sudden is it Achar Kach Ba'u Banecha? What's the emphasis on Banecha? Share with you a very important question of the Chidah. The Chidah is found in Rosh David in Parshas Miketz. What exactly was the Gzeira of the Yevanim? So the Medrash Rabbah says that the 4 Golosim are alluded to in the beginning of the Chumash. V'aretz Hoisa Soihu, that's Malchus Bavel. Shenemar Ra'isi Ha'aretz V'hinei Soihu. Vayhu is Malchus Madai. V'choshech is Yavan. Shehechshichu Eineihem Sha'isal B'Gzeirasehem. V'amru Aleihem Kisvu al keren ashar, right on the horn of an ox. Shein lochem chelek b'lekei Yisrael. Right, we're all familiar with that. That was the decree of the Yevanim. We had to write on the horn of an ox. That's basically put a bumper sticker on your car. Ein lochem chelek b'lekei Yisrael. That was the decree. So every ox had on the back of it, on the horn, Ein lochem chelek b'lekei Yisrael. So Chidah asks, that's not the decree. That's the decree. I thought the Medrash says they were mevatel 3 mitzvahs: Chodesh, Mila, Shabbos. V'chimesh es eretz Mitzrayim. Chodesh, Mila, and Shabbos. So make up your mind. Was it they were goyzer ein lachem chelek v'lekei Yisrael, or were they mevatel Chodesh, Mila, and Shabbos? So the Chidah says the following approach. Chidah says that why were the Yevanim after Chodesh, Mila, and Shabbos? What's the common denominator of Chodesh, Mila, and Shabbos? So he says Chodesh, Mila, and Shabbos establish the fact that we are the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know what's the halacha if a Gentile wants to keep the Shabbos. Goy sheshavas chayiv misa. Why? Because since Rebbeinu Shalom rests on Shabbos, so Shabbos is the scepter of the king. If a mere regular citizen picks up the scepter of the king, they're chayiv misa. So if a Gentile observes Shabbos, they're chayiv misa. But Klal Yisrael are allowed to keep the Shabbos because we're banim la'makayim. So if the king's child picks up his scepter, so the king is going to be very proud that his child is holding on to his scepter. So Shabbos demonstrates we're banim la'makayim. How about Rosh Chodesh? What if you have unknowledgeable Bezdin, and they don't have their act together, they don't know the halachas, and they proclaim some random day Rosh Chodesh, and they're completely off. It's Rosh Chodesh whenever they say Atem, atem, atem. Atem afilu shoygigim, afilu mazidim, afilu mutaim. Even if they intentionally pronounce the wrong day Rosh Chodesh, even if they're in error, Rosh Chodesh is Rosh Chodesh whenever the Bezdin says. What does that show our relationship is with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Says the Chidah, only a child could abuse the law of the parent, and the parent will go along with it. Rosh Chodesh teaches us that we're always considered the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. By the way, there's a similar drasha. Banim Atem Lashem Alekeichem. Atem afilu shoygigim, afilu mezidim, afilu mutaim. And then Mila, the Zayar says, somebody who has the Oisbris Kodesh, it's a sign they're a ben to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Yevanim, they wanted to be mevatel from Klal Yisrael the 3 mitzvahs that demonstrate we're banim. So the Gezerah was, they said, Ein lochem chelek be'elokei Yisrael. Question, what in the world does it mean we're banim la'makayim? What's a father? Father is someone who contributes to the genetic code, to the DNA of the child. How could we say the Rebbeinu Shalom is our father? In what way is he our father? He's actually our father? He created us. If you make a table, you're not the table's father. So Hashem created us. How's he our father? So the Chidah's great-grandfather, the Chesed Li Avram Azulai, he writes that the neshama is a chelek Hashem, is a piece of the divine. The genetic code of the neshama is literally a piece of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shenemar ki chelek Hashem amoy. So yes, Rebbeinu Shalom's our father because our spiritual makeup is a piece of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where do we learn that from? Ki chelek Hashem amoy. So when the Yevanim said, Ein lochem chelek be'elokei Yisrael, you're not a piece of Hashem, what they were getting at is, you're not banim lamakom. And how are we going to demonstrate you're not banim lamakom? We're going to be mavatel chodesh milan Shabbos. So it's not two different gezeros, it's one gezerah. The gezerah is, you're not the children of Hashem. Ein lochem chelek. Advertise that you're not the children of Hashem. How are we going to go about doing that? We're going to be mavatel chodesh milan Shabbos. So that's how the two gezeros are reconciled, says the Chidah. Imkain, the miracle of Chanukah reinstates and reestablishes that in fact our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that we are banim lamakom. So therefore, even though in the beginning of Al Anisim it's Ula'amcha Yisrael asisa tshuah gedola kisha'amda malchus yom narshal Amcha Yisrael. But by the time Klal Yisrael goes back into the Heichal and they see the Shechina rests in Klal Yisrael and they see Yesh lanu chelek be'elokei Yisrael. So it's V'achar Kain Bo Banecha. By the way, the Rambam writes, the Ikar Al Anisim on Chanukah is the end of V'achar Kach Ro'u Banecha. Because that was the miracle. The miracle is that we were reinstated as Banim Lamakom. That Yesh Lanu Chelek Be'elokei Yisrael. So in other words, the miracle of Chanukah is reinstating Chodesh Milan Shabbos, demonstrating Bein Kach U Bein Kach Nikram Banim. Now, what is our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What are we to Him? It's a big machlokes. This is the best machlokes ever. Rabbi Yehuda has mamish ga'oinus, and I wish we could borrow this. So you're in a store, you went shopping, and you made the biggest mistake of your life. You brought your kids with you to the store. And surprisingly, they're not behaving. So somebody says, who are these kids? So wouldn't it be convenient to say, I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure. Some lady I know asked me to watch them. How do you know the lady? I happen to be married to her. She asked me to watch the kids. Are you related to them? No. Kishe'enam oisim ritzoini, they're my avodim. They're my avodim. I'm not related to them. Says Rabbi Yehuda, it's gavaldik. The Rebbe Shalom says that when we don't follow the mitzvahs, we're not connected to Him. We're not His children. We're His avodim. Wouldn't that be a great thing to have in your back pocket? When we're following the mitzvahs, when we observe the mitzvahs, we're His children. That is Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. By the way, the Baal HaTurim says, a remes to Rabbi Yehuda is right before in Re'eh, it says, Ve'asisa hayashar ve'hatoiv be'enei Hashem Elokecha, then banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. When you do what's right, then you're banim. It's a riot to Rabbi Yehuda. When you're ve'asisa hayashar ve'hatoiv, banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. And Rabbi Meir goes out on a limb. Rabbi Meir says, no. Our relationship with Hashem is like our relationship with real children. Biological children, they're your children, no matter how they act. Our relationship with Hashem is no matter how we act, afilu shoygagin, afilu mezidin, afilu mutayim. The Gemara says, even if we're foolish, even if we have no emunah, even if we're mashchisim, even if we're oived avodah zara, we're His children, and not only that, we're called His good children, b'nei kelchai. Now, how do we paskin? Do we paskin like Rabbi Meir, or do we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? Usually, there's a rule in Shas, in Erevin, that Chachamim havayodim shelo haya b'doiroi kamoisai. The rabbis knew there was nobody ever like Rabbi Meir. Was the most brilliant Tanu who ever lived. The problem is nobody knew what the man was talking about. Lo yardu chachamim l'sayvdai. They couldn't figure him out. He was too deep for them. So we don't paskin like him. Never in Shas do we paskin like Rabbi Meir. Without any exception. Oh, there's one exception. The Rashba writes in Siman Kuf Tzadi Daled, Siman Reish Mem Beis, that this is the one exception in Shas that we paskin like Rabbi Meir. Why, says the Rashba? Says the Rashba, because Rabbi Meir cites 4 psukim to support his view. Rabbi Meir cites the pasuk, Banim mash zera mereim, banim mash chisim, banim loy emon bam, b'nei kelchai. Rabbi Meir cites 4 psukim to support his view, and therefore kroi kadayik kivasayu, and we paskin like Rabbi Meir. The Emes Liakov, Rav Shaltiel Ninyo, Rabbi Yaakov Shaltiel Ninyo says another reason we pass like Rabbi Meir is because the Braisa is discussing Shitas Rabbi Meir. That Rabbi Meir says, even if we're mashchisim, and even if we're loy emon bam, and even the fact that the Gemara Shakal Vatari Dafka in Rav Meir and not Rabbi Yehuda is a raya we paskin like Rav Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Maimon writes that usually Rav Meir is listed as a Tanakama. And then come the other Tana. In this instance, it's Rabbi Yehuda and then Rav Meir. Why? Well, to indicate Rav Meir has the last word. That we paskin like Rav Meir. The Emes Le'Yaakov says one of the most astounding, amazing things. He says, you know why you paskin like Rav Meir? Because why don't we usually paskin like Rav Meir? Because nobody knows what he's talking about. It's too deep. But that's when it's relevant to us. That's when it's a issue of what to do down here in this world. But how the Rebbeinu Shalom reckons us, reckons is a big English word I learned, right? In America, nobody even knows what that means. But how the Rebbeinu Shalom reckons us, that's up to him. And the Rebbeinu Shalom definitely is Yored L'Soif Daiter Sharameir. The Rebbeinu Shalom definitely understands what Rameir means, and therefore when it comes to Machloikis regarding the Rebbeinu Shalom, we paskin like Rameir because the Rebbeinu Shalom is Yored L'Soif Daiter Sharameir. Now, the Satmar Rebbe, without quoting this Emes Yaakov, says this is the pshat: Im kibanim, im ka'avadim. Im kibanim, rachameinu, krachim avabanim. V'im ka'avadim, eineinu l'chasuyas. He asks, what do you mean im kibanim, im ka'avadim? What do you mean if? We paskin like somebody, so what's the shaila? And im ka'avadim, eineinu l'chatuluyas. So he says, this is the whole Shakra V'Tarya is in this tefillah. Im kibanim, if we act like children, then even Rabbi Yehuda is moida. Rachamenu karachim avabanim. Vim kavadim, and if we're naughty boys, so Rabbi Yehuda would say we're not banim. So we say Rebbeinu Shalom, okay. But Rabbi Meir says we're still like banim. And eineinu l'cha tiluyais, to be yoyred l'soif daito shel Rabbi Meir, to paskin that even though we don't understand Rabbi Meir, but you understand him, ad shetachanenu v'soitzi karmashvatenu ayam kadosh. Now, the light of Chanukah, the Yom Tov of Chanukah, is the miracle, the Rebbeinu Shalom declaring to the world that we are always the children of Hashem. You can't be Mevatel Chodesh, you can't be Mevatel Milah, you can't be Mevatel Shabbos, because Yesh Lanu Chelek B'Lekei Yisrael. So which Tana is just completely enraptured and connected to the Yom Tov of Chanukah? That the light of Chanukah is really... it's the light of his soul. It's his whole world view. Rav Meir's shita of Ben Kach or Ben Kach Nekram Banim, which Yom Tif established that world view for all time, that no matter what, we could be, in times of Chanukah, we reached a very all-time low. By the way, some Mefarshim learn that the whole idea that they couldn't find any oil, you believe that story? Yeah, that's the Yom Tif. They contaminated all the oil, and except for one little jug of oil, and they found that jug, and they lit it for 8 days. Since when do we make a miracle? Since when do we make a Yom Tif when a miracle happens? Make a Yom Tif because they found a jug of oil? The whole thing's a mashal. The majority of Klal Yisrael intermarried. They were misyavnim, they Hellenized, they left the fold, they went off the derech. And we don't talk about it because it's downright embarrassing to us. There was one little flask of oil, meaning one little small chevra of Yidden that remained steadfast to Judaism and adhered to the traditions of Klal Yisrael. And it was enough only to keep Klal Yisrael going for a very short amount of time. But they made the effort, and through the efforts of the Chashmonaim, they were able to regenerate Klal Yisrael l'netzach netzachim, says the Hadrash V'Ha'iyan. And there's a lot of basis to this idea that that's really what Chanukah is about. So Chanukah demonstrates the Shita Rav Meir Ben Kach Ben Kach Nekram Banim. So is there any wonder why Rav Meir always invoked the light of Chanukah? Elokah de Meir Einenu in the times of Chanukah. Why did Rav Meir love Chanukah so much? Because that miracle demonstrated his worldview, his Shita, his conviction that no matter what, we are always the children of Hashem. So on whatever happened, Rav Meir said, Elokah de Meir Anini, Elokah de Meir Anini. Rav Meir always tapped in to that koyach of Ben Kach, Ben Kach Nekram Banim. We could say as follows, somebody loses their car keys. So what do? Elokah de Meir Anini. What's Rav Meir got to do with your car keys? You were Shlemazel. You don't know where you put your car keys. So now Rav Meir has to suffer in Gan Eden. Hey Rav Meir, help me find my car keys. You can't find your toothbrush. So put it somewhere where you're going to find it. What are you bugging Rav Meir for? What Rabbi Meir got to do with it? It's interesting. We know that the physical world parallels the spiritual world. Now, can someone be lost in the spiritual world? In Rabbi Yehuda, you can be very lost. Because if you don't keep the mitzvahs, you're not even connected to HaKadosh Baruch anymore. You're down for the count. But in Rabbi Meir's world, no one's ever lost. Because no matter what, ben kach nekram banim. So if in Rabbi Meir's world nobody's lost in the spiritual world, then neither is your toothbrush or your car keys. Nothing is ever lost. There's always another chance in the world of Rabbi Meir. When's Rabbi Meir's yahrzeit? The day of a second chance, Pesach Sheni. Because in the world of Rabbi Meir, there's always a Pesach Sheni. There's always another opportunity. You're never out of the loop. There's always another opportunity. You could always come back. Now, in the end of days, God's going to want to bring Mashiach. The thing is, like, for who? For are we ever going to deserve it? So Hashem's going to bring Mashiach, and the Goyim are going to say, for these guys, but they did A, they did B. So what's the answer going to be? The answer at the end of the day is going to be, I'm redeeming them because they're my children. So the Goyim are going to come and say, well, wait a second. We're the muchsuk on Klal Yisrael. There's a halach in Choshen Mishpat. If you're the muchsuk, you could say kimli, that the Goyim could say, we're not letting the Jews be redeemed. We hold like Rabbi Yehuda, that when they don't do the mitzvahs, they're your avodim, God. So what are the Jews going to say? No, we hold like Rabbi Meir, the Tshuvas HaRashba. But the Goyim are the muchsuk. Says the Emes Liakov, however, there's a rule. It's a very important rule. That in the location of the Mara Asra, we follow the halachas of the Mara Asra. In the place of the Rav, I daven nusach sfard, I'm a haimish guy. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your father does. You follow the Rav in the shul that you daven. Don't pull your shtick. Whoa, and my father didn't. When your father's a rabbi and you daven your father's shul, you can do whatever your father wants. When you're in front of your Rav, you follow the minhagim of the Rav. It's a halacha in Choshen Mishpat. So you know halacha is important to keep. Not only skulos. Jews keep halachas. And the halacha is, you must follow the rules of the Marda Asra. So, here's the deal. Any other city in the world, God can't bring Mashiach. Because the Goyim are going to say, we're muchsak. And we hold like Rabbi Yehuda. But if somehow we could manage to find the city where Rav Meir is the Marda Asra, that's going to be the city where the Rebbe Shalom is going to be able to pull out Mashiach and nobody's going to be able to say anything. So therefore, Rav Meir was buried in the city of Teveria. And once Rav Meir is buried in the city of Teveria, he becomes the Marda Asra of the city of Teveria. And the Rebbe Shalom b'hashgachasai orchestrated that Mashiach will be revealed in Teveria. So the Goyim are going to say, wait a second, but these Yidden, they're checking their phone during Chazar Sashatz. It's not even davening. What in the world is that? That's not davening. It's not davening if you bring a phone into a shul. Right? You know that. Definition of tefillah is la'avdoi b'chol levavchem, to serve God with all your heart. So if you have a device which is vying for your attention, you are not even making an attempt to serve the Lord with all your heart. So the first thing you do in the morning to make sure that you are praying to God is you don't bring a cell phone into the Beis HaKnesset. That's as long as you want to daven. If you say, I don't need to daven, I keep 612 other mitzvahs, that's your personal prerogative. But if you would like to be mispalel, you got to leave the phone outside. So you're going to say, but there's a guy over here in the back, he's looking at the phone during Chazar Sashatz. So the only thing God's going to be able to do is, he's going to say, yeah, but they're my children. They're my children. So God will say, what do you mean, passing like Rabbi Yehuda? So the Jews are going to say, yeah, but the Tshuvas HaRashba. The guy will say, Tshuvas HaRashba today, tomorrow. The only thing the Yibam Shem could do is whip out Mashiach in the city of Teveria, where Meir is the Marda Asra, and in that city, nobody could say anything. It's kavua, la'ad uli'omei oilamim, ben kach u'ben kach nekraim banim. And that's what Rav Meir means in the Yerushalmi, I am Mashiach. He's not personally Mashiach, he can't be Mashiach, he comes from Edom. It means his worldview, his shita, allows for the coming of Mashiach. Says the Ben Yehoyada, an amazing thing. The way Rav Meir was buried is different than anybody in history. Rav Meir was buried standing up. Why? Because his shita is oimed for Klal Yisrael forever and ever and ever. So on this great night of Matzai Shabbos, the first Matzai Shabbos of Chodesh Kislev, the Yom Tov of Chanukah. Chanukah, Rabbi Meir says, is the inauguration of the third Beis HaMikdash, Yava B'Meher V'Yameinu. And it's our first opportunity to mention the name Eliyahu Hanavi and to mispal for the Geula. What better way than to speak about the great Tana, Rabbi Meir Balanes, that Reb Chaim Falaji says about him, that there's a chiyuv never to be Mesiach Das from the Tana, Rabbi Meir Balanes. Why? I mean, you're allowed to be Mesiach Das from any other Tana. There's no Isser Hesach Hadas, because you can never be Mesiach Das, of being Mitzaper for the Yeshua. And to earn the Yeshua, and to deserve the Yeshua, we have to rely on Shitas Rabbi Meir. So may we be Zoicha, the Rebbeinu Shalom should be Nisoirer, Al Banav, and just like in the times of Chanukah, as V'achar Kain Bo Vanecha Ledvir Beisecha, we too should be Zoicha to come Ledvir Beisecha, V'biaska Al Tzedek, M'her V'yaminu, Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.